I am weary from the waves crashing over every day. God of mercy, please come rescue me. I am longing for your voice, your gentle whisper in the noise. Father, tell me everything's all right. Your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be a breakthrough. You alone can take my scars. Piece by piece restore my heart. Take what's broken, make me whole again. Whole again. Your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be a breakthrough. Shake the mountains, break the walls apart, open the heavens. Almighty God, you are overcomer, defender of my heart. By your power, the oceans open wide, your fires fall down, heaven and earth collide. King Jesus, forever by my side. Shake the mountains, break the walls apart, open the heavens. Almighty God, you are overcomer, defender of my heart. Oh, by your power, the oceans open wide, your fire falls down, heaven and earth collide. King Jesus, forever by my side. Your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough. Your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough. There will be breakthrough. There will be breakthrough. What else can satisfy? Make my life your reflection, like an echo of heaven. What can compare? A million lifetimes filled with worship still can't fathom your greatness. So I will is more than emotion, more than chasing a moment. How can I honor you? I was made in your image, now I run in your purpose. What more could I need? A million lifetimes filled with worship, still can't fathom your greatness. So I will live my life surrendered. For you are worthy, for you are worthy, yeah. Na na na, na na na. Whoa, na na na, na na na. Now I live to worship. All I am to love you. Take this life, I lay it down. Take this life, I lay it down. Now I live to worship. All I am to love you. Take this life, I lay it down. Take this life, I lay it down. Oh. Sacrifice. You lived a life to open my eyes. You lived a life of unfailing love. You lived a life and I can't get enough. My soul sings, my heart sings, and you owe me nothing. I owe it all to you, and you owe me nothing. I owe it all to you. Of your grace, and I live a life always seeking your face. I live a life learning how to love. I live say I'm enough, remind me it's true. And no more to say, no more to do. You say I'm enough, remind me it's true.
Hey, what's up, friends? It's good to see you this morning. My name is Luke. I use he, his pronouns, and I'm grateful to be the one today saying hi and kicking things off. We're going to start our worship conversation today with one of my favorite songs. This is On Earth as It Is in Heaven. Let it be so. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4. We bring our praise, you bring revival. We lift our hands, you lift our eyes up. Where your love is found, there will be no fear. God, your kingdom come, your will be done here. On earth as in heaven, Spirit of God, pour out, our hearts are wide open. Jesus, we need you now. Come, have your way in this place, break our walls down. Spirit of God, pour out, on earth as in heaven. Jesus, we need you now. We bring our shame, you bring redemption. You turn our chains into our freedom. Where your love is found, there will be no fear. God, your kingdom come, your will be done here. Oh, on earth as in heaven. Spirit of God, pour out, our hearts are wide open. Jesus, we need you now. Come, have your way in this place, break our walls down. Spirit of God, pour out, on earth as in heaven. Jesus, we need you now. We need you, Jesus. Oh. In your presence there is peace. In your presence we are free. There's no better place to be. There's no better place to be. In your presence there is truth. In your presence mountains move. We forever run to you. We forever run to you. In your presence there is peace. In your presence we are free. There's no better place to be. There's no better place to be. In your presence there is truth. In your presence mountains move. We forever run to you. We forever run to you. Oh.
Morning, folks. My name is Matt. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm so glad to be with you this morning. In today's edition of Where in the World is Matt Kwiatkowski, there's not a ton of mystery. Well, maybe it is to you, but not to me because I'm on my balcony. I just really wanted to be outside this morning, so here we are. If you are looking for ways to get more connected to Edges, you can do that by going to our website, bumcedges.com, scrolling to the bottom, and putting in some info, and you'll get an email about once a week. And there's lots of great things in there, including some of the things that we're going to talk about next. So we have 2 announcements this morning. First is that next Sunday, May 2nd, is our last Rethink series of the year. It's been an amazing journey, so we're going to reflect on that a little bit and then also talk about ways that we can continue to be the most inclusive community possible. So please be a part of this community-wide conversation with us. You can sign up at bumcedges.com/rethink, and that is virtual, so we'd love to see you doing that. Next is an in-person opportunity. Hard to believe that coming up this summer, Pastor Mandy has been with us for a full year, but many of you have not been able to meet with her in person. So we're calling this New-ish, which is super exciting, and there will be 3 opportunities for you to visit with Mandy outside at Edges. Those are going to be coming up on May 5th at 5:30, June 6th at 1:30, and July 12th at 9:30. It's going to be limited to about 20 folks, and you'll have to wear masks, but please go to bumcedges.com/newish, and that's where you can sign up. If you haven't been able to talk with Mandy yet in person, she is a true joy. So please make it if you can. With that, we'll continue in a word of prayer. God, be with us this morning. Be with us as we dwell on what it looks like to do no harm in our world, in our circles of influence, in our community, and in our own individual lives. Be with us today as we learn and grow and come closer to you, God. Amen.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Edges. My name is Mandy Newman, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm the pastor here, and I'm grateful to be with you today. This week, it appears like spring will finally be launching itself fully, and personally, I couldn't be more delighted. I'm so excited to be outside more and to be with other people more often. And although mask wearing is still a reality, I'm excited about doing more things in person in community. Now, the spring season seems to be offering us ample opportunity to gather as safely as possible. And with that in mind, I'd love to do a porch visit, grab coffee, or go for a walk with anyone who would like to do that. So reach out if you want to get together. I'll put my email in the chat now. If you're just joining us today is the last week of our worship conversation series, Do No Harm. This series has us rooted in the teachings of John Wesley, the founder of Methodism. We've learned that Wesley believed people demonstrate their faith in the way they live every day. And to that end, Wesley offered 3 simple rules as a way to guide our living. Here they are. The first is to do no harm. The second, to do good. And the third rule is to stay in love with God. Now, while Wesley believed that all 3 of these rules are important to living faith, during this series, we're focused on the first rule alone, do no harm. Now, as we've shared before, our conversations aren't meant to say that do no harm alone is enough. Although Wesley believes that it was of utmost importance to first do no harm, he didn't stop there. Do no harm is the first rule because the second and third rules, to do good and to stay in love with God, are not entirely possible without first being able to do no harm. It all starts there. Now, when we say we start with do no harm, what exactly are we talking about? Well, at first glance, to do no harm seems pretty obvious, right? For instance, to do no harm could mean don't walk around leaving harm in your wake. Like, don't leave trash laying around outside, and don't pollute water sources. Don't knock people over in order to get something you want or need. Those are pretty obvious ways we can do no harm. But if we take a closer look at what it means to do no harm, we may find that harm shows up in a lot more places and ways. And unfortunately, if we aren't paying attention, we may cause harm without intending to. So I'd like to pause here for just a moment and consider this question together in the chat. What are some of the ways that we cause harm unintentionally if we aren't paying attention? Think about the harm that we've caused or seen others cause by a decision that we've made, or an action, or even a non-action. We've seen harm happen to God's creation and in relationships with other people and to individuals themselves. Now let's face it, there are a myriad of ways that people can cause harm even if they don't mean to. In fact, I've done that just this week. Probably more than once if I think about that. But the one that I'm thinking about right now is when I inadvertently cut off a driver who was in my blind spot on the way into town. I didn't mean to do it. And at the same time, this person was clearly upset by my action. Now, if I stop and think about when something like that happens to me, I'm reminded that if I'm having a particularly rotten day and someone cuts me off, that just knocks my attitude for a loop, and I feel anxiety that I clearly didn't have to feel. And then at various points in my day, I may recall that one moment, and I'll relive the feeling of anxiety and annoyance and frustration. You see, even though it wasn't meant to be, that action is one that caused harm. So I'd like for us to spend a few minutes in the chat with that question. What are some of the ways we cause harm unintentionally if we aren't paying attention? We'll take just a few minutes to share, and then we'll come back together. Thanks so much for sharing those. There are so many ways that we can cause harm without even thinking about it. But for the next few minutes, I'd like for us to consider just one of those, specifically how we can cause harm through our words. Now, we've observed plenty of public figures who've caused harm through words. Our last president is a prime example. One of those instances happened during this COVID pandemic when Donald Trump said that the pandemic was China's fault. He even referred to the virus as the China plague several times. Now, those words that he used spiraled out and beyond the instances where the words were actually spoken, and it harmed a lot of people. In the public life, sometimes words don't simply cause harm to a group of people or even an entire nation. They can cause harm to individuals as well. Joe Biden admitted that while he was running for president, that he was a gaffe machine. He once asked Senator Chuck Graham to stand up so that he could see him. And at that time, Chuck was confined to a wheelchair, made paraplegic following a car accident. You see, sometimes harmful words are used intentionally, but in this instance, we see how easy it is to be careless with our words and how they cause harm, even when they are meant unintentionally. Although you and I may have opportunities to cause harm in broader contexts, I feel like the harm an individual causes with words happens most often on a personal or one-on-one level. Have you ever experienced a moment where you desperately wish you could rewind the past 5 seconds or somehow cause the words that just escaped your lips to jump back in your mouth? Maybe you'd like to unsend a text or an email or unpost a comment on social media. Sitting here today, I still think, and I become a bit anxious and saddened even about the harm that I've caused through my words. We won't make this a Mandy confessional moment or anything, but I do own that there have been more times than I'd like to openly admit where my words have caused harm. Sadly, even occasionally, I've said things on purpose, like, I just can't help myself when my husband puts the trash can in front of my potting bench. I have to point it out to him, and sometimes I use not so kind words. Even though most of the time the harm that I've caused with words was unintentional, it has caused harm nonetheless. Maybe you can think of a moment in your life where you too have caused harm with words. I'm reminded of the song My Stupid Mouth by John Mayer. If you haven't heard that, give it a listen. The entire song is about what he feels about saying things that are harmful. He actually feels so bad about it that he says in that song repeatedly, I'm never speaking up again. When we say harmful words, when we cause harm, the consequences aren't just felt by the person that we aim those words toward. We feel the results in our bodies and the way that we feel as well. Now, there are a myriad of places in Scripture where harm with words and actions is cautioned due to the consequences to all parties involved. But one of the best places for that is in the Apostle Paul's letter to the Galatians. Here in chapter 5, verses 13 to 15, Paul cautioned this community of faith. He said, "You were called to freedom, brothers and sisters, only don't let this freedom be an opportunity to indulge your selfish impulses, but serve each other through love. Love your neighbor as yourself. But if you bite and devour each other, be careful that you don't get eaten up by each other." You know, that passage starts off pretty well, right? The people are called to freedom. But then the end of that raises a few eyebrows. Paul actually cautions the people not to bite and devour each other because they just might get eaten up by each other. That sounds a bit harsh, perhaps, but there was a reason that Paul cautioned the community of faith in Galatia. They were too busy causing harm first. They were not sharing love with each other by word or action. They were critical of one another, arguing about who was right. And like a little yeast working through the entire batch of dough, one or two harsh words ate first at one person, and then at another, and then the entire community. Their words devoured them. And ultimately, Paul warned them that that harm would lead to their destruction. Now, at Edges, I'm reminded of how conscious we are of the words we use. As a community, we strive to be a safe place, for people to be themselves and for all people to not only feel accepted, but to be accepted. We readily state on our website and with the words we use that our community welcomes all, that no matter who you are, we're glad you're here. Edges is filled with believers and skeptics and doubters alike who are seeking to learn more about Jesus and how to better follow his ways. We own that no two people at Edges believe all the same things because God is at work in our lives in a diversity of ways. And we believe that we enrich each other's journey of faith by sharing creatively in open spaces where anyone and everyone can explore and strengthen and question what matters most. We value the words we say as a community and as individuals. So why should Edges have to spell all of that out? Well, many of you know I'm still a bit newish to the community. So with my newish lens, what I've come to believe as the reason that we have to spell all of that out is because in general, people don't often realize just how much weight words carry. Since I've been a part of this community, I've come to realize that some of the things I've been saying out of habit actually cause harm. As a result of Edge's strong belief as a community and the intentional choice we make to pay more attention to our words, I've personally been paying more attention to what I say. I've noticed that the spaces that we create are safer spaces for all people, and that the feeling I get in the few opportunities I've had for one-on-one talks with folks have made me appreciate the value and the reason for doing that as a practice. More than one of us in this community has been harmed by words, and I'm grateful that we make the choice to be intentional about the words we use in conversations and in emails and on our website. Now, I suppose because of that focus, one would think that we always get it right. And to that, I would say that we try. We strive to, and we sometimes don't always get it right. Maybe you feel like you already do this pretty well. I mean, it isn't all that complicated to do harm with words, is it? I remember as a child being told repeatedly, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. But to do no harm with words is more than that. Isn't it deeper than just saying something nice or not speaking at all? Let's be honest with each other. Is it really enough that we simply don't gossip or don't say words that are disparaging, or injuring, or wounding? Now, perhaps for some that is enough, but what if we could take that to another level? To do no harm with words means we don't manipulate facts or diminish one another ever. And it means that we take time to pause and think about what we say before we say it, because the words we use matter. But what if to do no harm with words included using the right name and learning how to pronounce someone's name correctly? What if it included using pronouns as a way to include everyone? And what if it included being conscious of trigger language around difficult topics so that we won't cause trauma to somebody else? You see, what we say with words and what we don't say matter when we are striving to do no harm. Our silences speak often as loud as our actual words and can cause equal harm. Now, when we talk about doing no harm as individuals, it's not just limited to our words. We can also cause harm through our actions, or probably even more important to name today, through our inaction. People can often cause the most harm by those things that we choose to do and not do. I believe there's something to the old adage that says actions speak louder than words. But what if it is also true to say that inaction speaks louder than words? Wouldn't that mean that in order to do no harm, we not only consider what we do, but also what we choose not to do? As we've talked about in the last 2 weeks, the broader church and a single community of faith not only can, but have caused harm in the actions they take and don't take. And just as this occurs in the broader church and with communities of faith, It can also be true for an individual. Some of the greatest moments in human history are the times when a single individual stood up and took action for someone or some cause for the greater good and against injustice or some societal wrong. I mean, outside of Jesus, think about those individuals that you can name off the top of your head, those who you know for their acts that they did on behalf of others. I think of Gandhi or Mother Teresa. Rosa Parks is a good one. Nelson Mandela or Malala Yousafzai. There's also a flip side of that, though, isn't there? Think about those people who are responsible for great harm. We know their names, too. I think about Nero or Hitler, Stalin, Khomeini. Consider this. In order for those to have done great harm, others would have had to stand by and do nothing. Although JFK used the quote, it was Edmund Burke who's attributed with this. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. You see, there are circumstances when standing by and doing nothing is in fact doing harm. I remember in 8th grade, I had to do a paper on Auschwitz, one of the concentration camps of the Nazi regime. It was an eye-opening experience for me as a youth, one that moved me to consider how inaction can actually cause harm, not just to individuals, but to specific groups of people on a global scale. Eli Wiesel was a Holocaust survivor who died just 5 years ago, and he spoke from experience to what happens when people stand by in the face of great harm. This is what he said. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere. When human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy, national borders and sensitivities become irrelevant. Sometimes to do no harm means that we must act and leave complacency at the door. I think we're seeing this in the response to the places in our own nation where Black and brown lives have been and are continuing to be harmed. This week, in part sparked by the killing of George Floyd and the results of the trial of his killer, we've seen that people are tired of being simply observers. We've been moved beyond the complacency of words and non-action to action. See, to do no harm sometimes requires action. I love this statement that's found in our United Methodist Book of Resolutions because it's something that I want to stand behind, something that moves me to action. It says this: the United Methodist Church believes God's love for the world is an active and engaged love, a love seeking justice and liberty. We cannot just be observers. So we care enough about people's lives to risk interpreting God's love and to stand, to take a stand, and to call each of us into a response, no matter how controversial or complex. I love that we have words on our website and words in our core beliefs that speak to how we should live in the world in ways that follow Jesus' way of love. I love that they aren't just for communities, but they're for us as individuals to own and to respond to God's love in ways that bring freedom and life. And at the same time, it's all fine, well, and good to have such resolutions in a book somewhere or on a web page. But the real challenge is for us to actually, authentically, and transparently live what we say we believe. Maybe that's why Jesus spoke so often about the need to love each other, because we don't do it very well. Perhaps that's why he said to his closest followers in John chapter 13, verse 34, love each other. Just as I have loved you, so you also must love each other. The way you love is how people will know that you follow me. You see, those words aren't meant just for his disciples. They're meant for us too. They're meant for us to write them on our hearts and to think about them with our minds so that we might have a shot in actually living them, not just in word, but in deed too. One of my favorite professors in seminary, Carson Brisson, wrote an article recently on the importance of words and action that ties into what we've been talking about. The article was only a brief 8 paragraphs, but I'd like to share just a few sentences with you. He said this: "Words are the midwives of identity and actions in the world God has so loved." He said that the words that we hear are not only to be upon our hearts, but they also always are passing through those hearts to seek diligently the flourishing of the world God has so loved. Words are important, especially when they take hold of our hearts and pass through them in ways that have us doing and acting and responding to all that God is already doing in the world. One of the places at Edges where we live this is through the songs that we sing. Just as the words in our emails and website are very particular, we strive to do that in the lyrics of the songs that we sing to. Our lead worshiper, Brian, spends hours and hours listening to thousands of songs, creating a list of potential songs for our community. Part of that decision-making process includes thinking about whether the language falls into this do no harm area. Like most things, it isn't always perfect. But over the years, he's worked hard to find more and more songs where the words line up with the language that we deem important in our community. So I'd like to take just a moment here to thank him for his tireless and faithful work, and also to introduce this song to you, which speaks so powerfully to what we've been talking about today. It's called The Wick.
My heart is the wick, your love is the flame, and I want to burn for your name. My heart is the wick, your love is the flame, and I want to burn for your name. I wanna burn for you, only you, only you. I wanna burn for you, only you, only you. My heart is the wick, your love is the flame, and I wanna burn for your name. My heart is the wick, your love is the flame, and I wanna burn for your name. Burn with an everlasting fire, won't run out. It can't be put out. It can't be put out, 'cause I burn for you, I burn for you. passion in my heart and hope running through my veins. I will burn for you, I'll burn for you alone, with a hope and a future for me. Your forgiveness all around me, and your spirit living in me. I will burn for you, and they'll see you, and they'll see me when I burn bright for you. 'Cause it's your love, my heart is the wind. I wanna burn, my heart is the wick. Your love is the flame, and I wanna burn for your name. My heart is the wick, your love is the flame, and I wanna burn for your name. Oh, my heart is the wick, your love is the flame, and I wanna burn for your name. My heart is the wick, your love is the flame, and I wanna burn for your name. My heart is the wick, your love is the flame, and I wanna burn for your name. My heart is the wick, your love is the flame, and I wanna burn for your name. Oh. My heart is the wick, your love is the flame, and I wanna burn for your name.
How often, when harm occurs, do individuals and communities and the broader church offer opinions, justify and speculate about the harm, instead of acting out of a place of do no harm? What would it take for us to change that? Throughout the gospel, Jesus Christ tells us that whatever we've done to the least person, we've also done to him. What if we reclaimed the word Christian as a Christ follower in the way that the mystic Richard Rohr describes it, as one who sees Christ in everything and everyone? What would happen if we were to lean into that? If we believe that we see Christ in everything and everyone, how could any Christian justify anything harmful to any other who is in the very image of Christ? As individuals, as a community, and as part of a globally connected denomination, we are invited to follow Jesus' way and to participate in God's ongoing work in the world. We do that through our lives and in the lives of others in ways that do no harm. That's the challenge, that we live in ways where we're more aware of the words we use, and we're more aware of our action and our inaction, and thus our impact. Let's meet that challenge. Let's meet that challenge and take up the invitation to live in such a way that we would bring no harm to any aspect of God's creation. May it be so. Now I'd like to invite you to gather your bread and your juice and join me in a Zoom room to share communion together. That link will appear in the chat. And now, friends, may joy and nothing less find you on the road. May you be blessed, and may you continue to be a blessing. And may God's light, love's own crucified and risen light, guide you and countless others all the way home. Amen.
You say I'm enough, remind me it's true. No more to say, no more to do. You say I'm enough, remind me it's true. No more to say, no more to do. You owe me nothing. I owe it all to you. Oh, you owe me nothing. I owe it all to you. And you owe me nothing. I owe it all to you. You say I'm enough, remind me